Rob, we were just talking about how nothing. What do you want to talk about today? We're probably just going to field some
So
questions
slow.
from like, yeah.
Wait, actually, I do. Oh, before you talk, Rob, there's huge news related to our teams, the Sixers and the Clippers. Nicholas Batum is going back to the Clippers.
Yes.
The wing that everyone's been chasing this offseason, Nicholas Batum, is going back after playing with the Sixers. That's obviously what everyone wanted to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, Nick Batum had interest from so many teams. It was a massive contract.
Yep.
The
big
proven success, proven playoff performer.
Yeah.
Noted entry passer. Just the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
One of the best veterans in the league. I would say one of the best 33 to 35-year-olds in the NBA that we have.
He's close to graduating from that. He's not a young guy.
I was gonna say I think he's 30. He turns 36 soon.
Yeah.
So this will be fun. Obviously, we get the news at 4 a.m. Basically, I wake
3:30.
It's 3:30 a.m. I woke up because I just had my slop senses were tingling, and my body was like, "Check your phone." 17 minutes after it happened, I checked my phone. Paul George signs with the Philadelphia 76ers, obviously a 5-year max. Did you guys, first off, before we get into like what this means for the Sixers and the NBA and stuff, did you guys realize that other than Fred VanVleet's contract last summer, which was only really a 2-year max with a 3rd-year team option, that this was the first 4-year max since 2019 from a player trading teams? There has not been a single one in free agent. There have been guys going back to their teams. There have been smaller Jalen Brunson style contracts, but there has not been a max contract from team to team other than Fred VanVleet last offseason, and he was only a 2-year deal. So this is the first 4-year max since that crazy summer of 2019 where Kawhi and Paul George went to the Clippers and Jimmy Butler went to the Heat and KD and Kyrie. No, that was the year before. KD and Kyrie went 2019 went to the Nets. Like, it is the first huge move that has really happened. It's kind of the first big free agency move that we've had in, like, I would say 5 years, really.
Yeah, I mean, free agency is kind of a cooked product, and we have Adam Silver and the owners to thank for that. But I mean, I know I was listening to I think it was the Hoop Collective, I don't know, something at lunch, and they were like, it's a west to east thing. Like, this is a transfer of power, and I'm like, I don't know about that, but like, it is a big deal. I mean, Paul George we'll talk plenty about Paul George. He's still really good, and teams do not sign stars in free agency anymore. And the madman Daryl Morey, the cap space plan was effectively pulled off against literally all odds.
There are now 3 good teams in the East, so watch out. And then I should be clear: there are 3 good teams in the East, and then there are the Bucks who have Giannis.
Yeah.
So you can't count them out. But now there are 3 teams at the top of the Eastern Conference in the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Knicks that have like legit star power, or at least more so with the Knicks. It's kind of like a very well balanced 1 through 7. And I still, like, I'm super pumped. Obviously, first off, before we get into anything else, I owe Daryl Morey a huge apology. I was not familiar with your game. I said if he pulled this off, I would give him credit. I thought the cap space plan was stupid. I thought it was nonsensical. I thought because of the fact that no one moves in free agency anymore, because the fact that this team, Philadelphia, has never gotten a big free agent, and Paul George is immediately the best player we've ever acquired in free agency, regardless of age, regardless of whatever. He is already the greatest player we've. And funny enough, before this, the 2 that we got in free agency obviously did not go well at all. I'm hoping that isn't a bad omen here, but Al Horford obviously in 2019 was a big name that they got in free agency. And then prior to that was Elton Brand leaving the Clippers and coming to the Sixers, never being really healthy with the Sixers, not being like, he was fine for us, but he was just never quite the same after he got here. So I have to apologize to Daryl Morey. This was a master chess move to trade James Harden to the Clippers last offseason, get future picks from them, also include PJ Tucker in that deal so that financially they're a little bit crippled and just not really able to make a lot of moves. And have this situation where Paul George is now leaving and joining the team. Paul George is not the Paul George of old. Like, he's not an MVP candidate anymore, but he's still one of the 30 best players in the NBA. And we never see this kind of thing happen before. And it's such a huge win for the Sixers just to get a guy. And even though I have this like weird feeling in my stomach about all of it, just because Paul George's playoff history, his injury history, his age, his contract status, all that stuff, this was always the most logical idea. This was always the most logical plan. And even if I, fell in love with the idea of trading for younger players, Brandon Ingram, Lauri Markkanen, whatever, this was the deal where you got the best value possible. You just take him into your cap space, and now you can use whatever you have left to build out the rest of the roster, which I still want to see that, Daryl Morey. You can't just sign the star and then not do anything. That's kind of been your MO. I want to see you be more aggressive. They still have 5 first-round picks to trade.
Huge slop, late-breaking slop. Buddy Boeheim signing an Exhibit 10 contract with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Thank you. Thank you. Love it. Love to see it. But
that's where we're at. Less than 24 hours into free agency. Is Buddy Boeheim.
Well, we did get today was pretty busy. Like, like once Paul George once Paul George signed last night, the floodgates opened a little bit with the slop. Teams were a little bit more aggressive in making their moves. But yeah, I mean, this takes the Sixers from like fringe contenders to directly in the middle of the championship conversation, in my opinion. I think they have, if not the second best odds in the East, the third best odds, with avenues to improve the rest of the roster. And look, like, this is what we've always wanted. We just wanted them to push in the chips. We wanted them to be aggressive in getting the third guy to pair along with Maxey and Embiid. And say what you will about Paul George and some of the faults in his game, he is still an elite shooter. He is a wing, which is they've needed desperately. They don't have any sort of wing on this roster other than Kelly Oubre, and they just really made the team way, way better, and it couldn't have gone better, in my opinion, considering where we were at a few months ago.
Yeah, I will say, not to play to the audience too much, pull a Sam here. I mean, I would say the Sixers are better than the Knicks, or at least have a higher upside than the Knicks.
I would agree with that as an objective person. I don't know. The playoffs are about stars. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's going to, this is annoying, but it's going to come down to how healthy Embiid is, like it always does. And Paul George by extension. And I think that Embiid they're not going to have anyone for Embiid. Honestly, the Sixers are kind of perfectly made to give the Knicks a lot of shit because they've only got injured ass Mitchell Robinson now that they've lost some of that. Celtics and Tatum just re-signed on a $315 Supermax, by the way.
Okay. So we expected that.
What I would say to the Sixers, and Trill, by the way, if you want me to hop off, I can hop off. But
no, you're good. Continue.
Is that I think the test case or the use case for the Sixers to be a successful team is just a health question, versus the Knicks need a remarkable amount of. It has to work with the 5 slot basically to make sense as a team. Otherwise, they're just throwing wings at people, and that's fine. I think that they have the best possible upside for treating wings like hammers and just hurling them at people. But I do think that the Sixers are now effectively the only possible positive test case for the Big 3 model under the current CBA.
Well, that's the thing about the Big 3 model is, like, I've said time and time again, I think that people are overreacting to the Big 3 thing can't work. And this was before the Sixers signed Paul George. This was before all this. I've said the Big 3 can't work when your 3 best players are Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. Yep. Because they're just not – they're all different versions of the same player. They're not complementary in any way. Tyrese Maxey is one of the best off-ball players in the NBA. Joel Embiid's going to have to shoot more threes as his career goes on anyway to open up the floor for Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. Paul George is still one of the best catch-and-shoot guys in the NBA. They are now balanced positionally. And honestly, I think the biggest thing that they need to look for to build out the rest of this roster to make them kind of on the level of depth of the other teams, like the Celtics and the Knicks. Like, they have more star power than the Knicks now. But if you want to look at the fact that, like, then I think the Knicks are going to be able to figure out a way to replace a lot of Hartenstein's production. Hartenstein's very good. And I think if you look at this offseason from them, the Hartenstein thing was a little bit out of their control. But if you look at this offseason from them and you say Hartenstein and 5 first-round picks and a swap out, Mikal Bridges in, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot to, give up, even though they couldn't really help losing Hartenstein to OKC. They're going to have to figure out a way to replace his production. Mm-hmm. And I think that he was a really important part of their team. Now, it's easier to find rotation bigs than it is to find rotation wings, and they have 2. They probably have. I said it when the trade happened, when we did the Patreon episode of that. When they got Mikal Bridges, I was like, okay, so they basically just did what the Celtics did when the Celtics got Derek White and Drew Holiday. They just did the wing version of that. Let's just go get the 2 best role player wings in the NBA. And, potentially Mikal has some moments and times where he could scale up a little bit too, if you need him to score a little bit more. But I think what I'm looking at when I'm looking at the Sixers compared to the rest of the East, I still think that they need to, like I said, not sit on their hands. Don't just say, yeah, we'll just run this back now. They don't even have a 5th starter yet, really. Yeah, unless they promised Eric Gordon that he could start, and that's why he took the veterans minimum, which is a bad position to be in. I don't understand why we just can, not, basically ignore the 4 spot right now, because Paul George doesn't want to play power forward. Paul George wants to be a 3. Kelly Oubre will be your 2, Maxey your 1, Embiid your center. And from there, they need to find a 4 who can space the floor, rebound, and defend, and those guys are hard to find. That's a really specific skill set that I think that they're going to need to look at this free agency class. Now, this is what I think they should do, because obviously they brought back Oubre. They signed Eric Gordon. They brought Drummond home on part of the room exception to back up Embiid, which I think signals that they're going to try to rest Embiid more this season. If Daryl Morey finally changed his stance and said, let me pay $5 million for a backup center, I think that signals that they're going to be a little bit more careful with Joel this season. And so obviously, if you look at the rest of the roster with Paul Reed, whose deal is not guaranteed, they could waive him and open up $9 million in space. You have the question of Kyle Lowry and Buddy Hield still coming back, but none of these guys are forwards, and they need wings. They need forwards. I think what they need to do is they need to go out into this free agency class. And I think the 2 best guys left, I think you waive Paul Reed and you hope that you could bring him back on a vet minimum to be the 3rd center. If he walks, whatever, you can find a 3rd center. And you go, let's bring in one of Kyle Anderson or Caleb Martin and put them on $9 million a year to either start them at the 4 or bring them off the bench and play a little bit smaller with Paul George at the 4. And then bring KJ Martin back, because KJ Martin only has a $2 million cap hold, similar to the Maxey thing, why they were able to pull this off, because Maxey was coming off his rookie deal. He only has a $2 million cap hold. So they could technically give KJ Martin like $15 to $20 million next year and just use him as a trade chip, similar to what the Pacers did with Bruce Brown, where they just overpaid Bruce Brown, then traded him later for Pascal Siakam. I think the Sixers need to do something like that. Go out in free agency, get a guy, bring him in, hope that he can be a big part of your rotation. And if it doesn't work out, you get to the deadline, you have that guy, whether it's Kyle Anderson or Caleb Martin, and then you have a huge expiring contract with KJ Martin that you balloon pay to overpay. And then you can have all these picks to potentially upgrade that spot. Because right now, like, Dorian Finney-Smith does nothing for me. I'm sorry. I don't think that that's a guy that's worth spending a bunch on. And most of the guys that they can acquire with that Paul Reed contract are in that range. It's like Dorian Finney-Smith and down. It's like, really, they can only get up to 15 million, and there just aren't enough good players in the NBA that make that little to push in your chips for those guys. So I would just go into the free agency class and try to fill out the team that way.
I would too, and I think that realistically, I think that what I would like to see the Sixers do, if I was a Sixers fan, is pick up one guy like a Kyle Anderson, slow-mo, slightly older but reliable, and then maybe 2 vet men on their way out, young guys that could have upside. Like I would look at like Usman Garuba, who's like
Let's go. Parm favorite.
I mean, yeah. He was
JT Thor, Trendon Watford.
Exactly.
Let's go.
Well, no, literally,
Barlow.
I would say Usman Garuba and JT Thor together as like vet minimums who would otherwise be going to Europe.
Let's go.
I would say the guy who would be really interesting to me, and the Sixers would know better than anybody, is Robert Covington, like, are his knees just completely done? Can he play like 15 minutes a game? That's kind of like an ideal guy to have for this roster right now.
Sure. Yeah. I can't figure out if Nurse didn't like Covington or he just knew that his knees were cooked, because my thing is like, I'm just theorizing. Maybe I'm putting my own idea of what basketball is in 2024 and I'm projecting it onto Nick Nurse. But I kind of feel like Nurse likes to have, like, he played Marcus Morris over Robert Covington a lot last year. I know, Rob, Ty Lue used to do this all the time and it would drive you insane. But I do think that coaches like to have guys that can do something with the ball. Yes. I don't think that they like to have, like, the reason why Covington and Dorian Finney-Smith and those types, and PJ Tucker is old now, but like those archetypes of players are going away a little bit, is because the possessions generally end in their hands, and coaches, I think, want to keep the momentum going. Even if you're a little bit of like a ball stopper or whatever, they'd rather have a guy that can get their own shot, that can do a little bit. And even if they're not keeping the offense flowing and moving, they're at least getting something out of the possession. So I'm wondering if going into next year, the Sixers I think they would definitely bring back Covington on a vet minimum if he doesn't just retire because of the knees.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the funny part about this is Batum leaving, part of it is interesting to me because Paul George kind of talked him up on the recent podcast. Yeah. He talked up Covington and Batum and said they were kind of like the garbage men, right? Like they were the glue guys that would like hustle, rebound, make, to take open shots, keep the ball moving, those kind of things. And him talking about them and then Batum immediately leaving was funny to me. I'm like, I mean, I think that Batum would be a perfect fifth starter for this team, but now you're in a situation where you lose. I was always under the assumption that if they lost him, it would be because he just retired. But he goes to the Clippers and he signs a 2-year deal.
That was very surprising.
I can't imagine the Sixers didn't offer him at least $5 million a year. I think that was just apparently his family never left LA.
That is correct.
So since his family never left LA, he probably was like, if I'm playing again, I just want to live in LA for the rest of my career and retire as a Clipper.
Yes, I do know that. Like they did not want to leave Los Angeles. His wife has been vocal about that on Twitter. I don't think there was ever anything about them moving. I think they just stayed in Los Angeles. He loved the organization. He might love the organization more than any other player they've brought in. Like they did kind of reinvigorate his career. He had that horrible season in Charlotte, and like he was on the fringes of the NBA. And then he has, turned his career around and has, there's this article by Tomer about him. That was a huge blow to the Sixers. I mean, he is a perfect fifth guy. Marcus Morris, like he's so close to being cooked. Like I think like on the minimum for like a bench role,
that's what they'll probably do. I mean,
roll the dice, but like, I mean, you need a starter. Caleb Martin, I'm not a huge fan of just because he's like a little undersized. He's like not a particularly good rebounder. I think you need like somebody who's a little bit bigger than that next to PG, who's like he's a really good rebounder at the 2, like an okay one at the 3, and like not suited to play the 4. I think you need somebody with like a little bit more size and physicality. It's tough. Like 4 is maybe the hardest like position to really find in the NBA right now. Because like so many of them now are either like these tweener big men or just like undersized guys who are playing up.
I think that's a really good point, Rob. Like so many of the people that we would be seeing as power forwards are trying to do that, the tweener role. And then like any of the 4s that really pop because they're wings immediately elevate into that like sub-star class at the very least. Like when you're a wing and you're competent, teams overvalue you sometimes.
I think we know what this means. Andre Drummond, you are their starting power forward. The Sixers are going double bigs. One of my favorite Sixers of all time. Will said that I was more excited for Andre Drummond coming back than signing Paul George. And that was like almost true. Honestly, like I love having Drummond on the team so much. I think he's a perfect vibes guy. I'm just incredibly excited. I honestly do think that they probably will try the double bigs lineup in some capacity. They did it a few years ago with those two. I don't think he's going to play it often. I just think it's something to do during the regular season when it's February and it's just like, whatever, let's just throw out something to give them a different look. But I am I'm obviously very excited about all of this. Daryl Morey dropped the bit, dude. Eric Gordon, really? Like,
he's so cooked, man.
He is cooked. Like, and I think that it's fine to bring him off. Like, if they have him as like the 8th man who just comes in and puts up a bunch of threes, he's on the vet minimum. I can't complain too much, but like, I just don't understand how he could. He's so good at, like, there's two things Daryl Morey's good at. Okay, ready? The big moves, trading for Harden, getting off the Ben Simmons contract, drafting Maxey, those kind of huge. Getting Paul George, and then he's good at like margin moves, like, oh, we got George Niang for $3 million a year. We got Kelly Oubre on the vet minimum. We got whatever. But anything that involves like the middle ground, where it's like MLE guys or always former Houston Rockets, it's like he's addicted to this shit. He can't stop. It's getting absurd to the point where it's like Eric Gordon, James Harden, Daniel House, Robert Covington, PJ Tucker, Montrezl Harrell. I mean, you could just go on forever with former Rockets that we've had. And I just want to see him go somewhere. Pat Bev, it's just Dwight Howard. Like, it's literally unbelievable how many guys he has signed that were once a part of his teams in Houston. Even D'Anthony Melton, he drafted him technically. So like I said, it would be, I just want him to be a little bit more creative, go get new players. Another guy that I would just throw out there is like, I think this team is once again going to be a little bit old, and it's going to lack like juice. It's going to lack athleticism. Like, take a flyer on Lonnie Walker. Take a flyer on someone that can just run with Maxey and can just like steal some points in some random games. And occasionally have a heater off the bench. Like, don't keep signing guys in their mid-30s. Like, just get some youth in there. Like, the Kelly Oubre signing was amazing because Kelly's an actual athlete who's like 27, 28 years old that can give you some juice off of the bench or as a starter. He fits well with the team. So like, I like the moves, obviously, but like, just be a little bit more creative with your other moves is my only thing. It's going to drive me a little bit insane if we do the same exact thing again and expect different results.
Would you be interested in LGBT ally Isaac Okoro?
Well, first off, I did see that was hilarious on Twitter last night. But I honestly, you know what's really funny is I've never been an Okoro guy, and I think that he finally had like a somewhat decent shooting season this year, if I remember correctly.
He's gonna get overpaid.
You think he's gonna get overpaid?
I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like, Derrick Jones Jr. only getting 330, and then like Najee Marshall 327. So like,
we got to talk about the Derrick Jones Jr. thing.
Well, I want to talk about how fucking Tobias Harris got $26 million a year, and Najee Marshall and Derrick Jones.
Derrick Jones doesn't have an agent right now.
Yeah, what?
Derrick,
what are you?
The NBA.
What is happening?
The NBA rules denied Derrick Jones access to an agent. He switched to Clutch, but there's a 15-day window,
right?
And I think they took advantage of him. I think we got to look into this. I'm just saying.
I mean, it's possible that he was, just didn't have the right guidance, but
side by side of Troy Weaver and Trajan Langdon, and it just says you killed the man, but not the idea. The Detroit is something else. I mean, there's a lot of things. Here's what I'll say before we finish up our Sixers talk. I think it's a pretty good position to be in when power forward is the position of need for your team. Like, that's the easiest thing to find. I think a lot of...
Is it, though? With what the Sixers need?
Yeah. Even with what the Sixers need, there's a ton of guys. Like, are you going to get a guy who does every dribble, pass, shoot thing well? No, you're going to have to pick two of those three. But I think you can get those guys. Like, Isaac Okoro would not be the end of the world on that team because everybody else can shoot. Like, it doesn't work on the Cavs because they have two bigs that they can't play together with him.
But he's also not a 4. He would functionally be a 4 because I guess if you could put, like, I don't know. like Isaac Okoro is like 6'4". Like I think if you need to have someone that's like actually power forward size.
He played 4 for them. I mean, sure, fine. I'm just using Isaac Okoro as an example. I'm just saying 4 is the least valuable position in the NBA besides maybe point guard. Like undersized point guard. Like you can find
if you look at this free agency class, it seems like shooting guards are fucking easy to find. I mean, none of them are getting paid right now. And all of like Gary Trent Jr. is still available, Malik Beasley, Buddy Hield. None of them are getting any money right now. It seems like that is like the easiest thing to find.
Right I wonder if you could, speaking of the Pistons, I mean, I don't think Beef Stew would work as a starting 4. He'd be an interesting backup guy. Are the Pistons planning on keeping Simone Fontecchio?
That was the one guy that I was thinking about as like anyone they get, I think right now, because just to be clear, Jake Fisher said they're out on Lauri Markkanen. And Derek Bodner did a whole thing in our Discord last night and also talked about it on his show. He's like, it's almost impossible to make that Lauri Markkanen stuff work.
Right. So slop, go back to the Magic 3 years.
Oh, wow. The league is changing right before our eyes. Yeah. Go Patate, folks. Everyone's favorite EPM guy. Vagberg has been saying for weeks that people just watch or people just check EPM and don't actually watch, and that's why they're obsessed with Goga. But anyway, the thing that I was going to say was like whoever they get, I think is going to end up being a stopgap for whoever they can upgrade on later. Just because right now the way that the market is broke, you don't want to overpay for Lauri Markkanen, who it's almost impossible to make the salary work anyway. At where the Sixers stand right now. And there isn't really anyone in this free agency class that's left that's a 4. That like I think the closest thing to that would have been like Najee Marshall.
I think Slow-Mo is a 4.
Slow-Mo is a 4, sure. And honestly, the thing about Slow-Mo is that he's the hard part about fitting Slow-Mo on most teams is that he needs the ball. The Sixers have some of the best catch and shoot guys in the NBA. I think there are lineups you can make that work in. And a guy that can play multiple positions and is a really good passer. The only problem with him is like the shooting is just dead now. Like he shot 22% from 3 this year. And like he takes forever to load up. He doesn't take enough threes. I mean, I just don't know what he would do when he didn't have the ball with this Sixers team. But I do think that as a passer and rebounder, he fits a lot of the things they need.
I'm a little bit sad you didn't get in at a chance for Obi Toppin. I was kind of thinking that Obi Toppin would have been. I mean, I know
I like the idea of Obi. It's just the defense is so hard to pull off with him. Like I think that the reason why he's so good for the Pacers is because they run a ton, and he's an athletic guy that can run in the open court, can make threes, has these assists, but his defense is just like you saw it against the Celtics, where it's just like he's fine. I think he's like a good like guy to have off your bench. But if he's starting for you, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, every option that comes up, and all the options that Sixers fans will say, they're not Herb Jones isn't getting traded. Trey Murphy isn't getting traded. Like, the reason why they're trying to trade Brandon Ingram is because they want to extend those guys. Right. So there's no reason that they want to trade. Like, that's just not happening. I've talked to Pelicans people who are like, they will never trade them. Like they literally would have to get back like Giannis to trade those guys.
Would you be able to, if you traded Reed, do you have enough money to take in Kyle Kuzma or no? Does he make too much?
No. Yeah, just to let everyone know, if you make more than $18 million a year right now, where the Sixers are considered right, it's $17 million a year. There's basically no way you can get there unless you include, I think maybe if you include Jared McCain, you can get up to a certain point, but I don't think it's going to happen.
It's not a particularly you have a very limited group of players that you're even like potentially aiming at.
Do we have the structure on the Maxey extension yet? Like
it doesn't. The Maxey extension doesn't affect this at all.
Because it does because
right now, no, it doesn't.
No, for the KJ Martin because you hard cap yourself with the first Abram, but you can use KJ Martin in sign and trades. So the Maxey extension does matter in that instance.
But KJ Martin sign and trades would have to be a 3-year deal.
Yes,
that's the problem. KJ Martin is a fringe NBA player, and no team's going to take him unless you give like 5 first-round picks. Is my thing.
I don't know about like
I'm saying for like a really, really good player. Like, okay,
I'm thinking about for like Cam Johnson or something like that.
Yeah, like, that was we talked about that a little bit. Like the idea of doing it gets really hard to fill out the rest of your roster. It's almost impossible. People have kind of figured out. Like it's like I said, like The realistic options that they're able to do are 17 million and down, and there just aren't enough good players to do that are realistically going to be traded. I think that
you want some dark thoughts? Grant Williams.
I don't want Grant Williams.
Grant Williams could be on the move.
I thought you were going to say Ochai Brissett.
He'd be pretty good for you guys.
Yeah.
I think
how about, wait,
Williams
hold on.
would be good for
Quick
you guys.
question on Grant Williams.
Yeah.
Oh wow, Colin Gillespie 2-way deal with the Suns. That's important because they didn't get Tyler Kolek. So it's important to remember. It's important to remember. You got to have a white guy. So 11.6 million for Grant Williams, but does he have this year and next year, or just this year?
So Grant Williams, he has this year and next year.
And no, I'm not. I don't want him.
Why not?
I don't want Grant Williams. If he was on an expiring salary, sure, why not take him for free? But I'm not.
Well, you're not going to get into the cap anyway. That actually works your advantage if he's expiring.
He doesn't have positive trade value. I would rather just.
He has 25, 26, and 26. 27.
Yeah, there's literally. I'm not risking getting stuck with that contract.
People have swung the other way way too
Enough
hard.
About Grant Williams.
Everyone swung the other way way too hard on Grant Williams. He's
not a starting four. I don't want a guy who's not a starting four to get paid $12 million a year.
This is literally they booed Jesus because he told him the truth. What is going on right now? In this
Look,
chat,
I'm just saying you could throw him at Giannis to just be annoying. Grant Williams has a remarkable power, and that is to make opposing stars mad.
Both teams traded Grant Williams and immediately went to the NBA Finals.
Okay, in the regular season, because he's bad in the regular season. You need a 16 game. You need a 16 game player.
Here we go.
Playoff riser. They have one playoff riser on the Sixers, and that's Tyrese Maxey.
Oh my god!
Put Grant Williams with Tyrese Maxey. They will cook. Yeah.
No.
If you want gross, I will throw one last name out there.
Yep.
One of my guys, maybe also a Parm guy. I don't know. I've always liked Chimezie Medu. Sign Chimezie Medu.
I like Chimezie Medu
too. Hold on. Chimezie Medu is the Parm guy.
Yeah,
I literally think the first time I ever spoke with Parm, he mentioned Chimezie Medu. Like, he is like the original Parm guy. But
he's not bad.
I'm like, this is the thing. It's like,
you got to read.
By the way, I don't care if they want to sign anyone. I'm not trading for guys. I'm not giving up value to trade for guys is my thing. And like, maybe if there's a deal where maybe they do some weird, I don't even get the Kuzma thing and the Cam Johnson thing. Like, they're just not realistic, but like maybe there is a way that they can swing and get whoever for, I think the one guy that they would consider if it was like I don't even think they would give up a first for Dorian Finney-Smith, but I think that they would give up like maybe their Mickey first they have, which is like the worst of the three.
Clippers one.
Or seconds. Yeah. Or seconds. Because I think he only has 1 year left on his deal, if I remember correctly. There's a player option after that. So yeah, I'm not a big Dorian Finney-Smith guy. I want to have players that can do things with the ball. Like, I don't want to have anyone who is just a corner shooter. I know he can like finish around the rim and is a decent defender, but I'm just like, I'm off that archetype of player. I'm kicking the can down the road until the deadline to try to upgrade that 4 spot, because I just don't think the options right now are available unless there's something outside of the box. Maybe he thinks outside of the box. Honestly, my favorite option right now of everyone is Santi Aldama from the Grizzlies, who makes like no fucking money. And is a 4-5 that could realistically play with Embiid, without Embiid. I think that he could be, a guy, but he's also 23, 24 years old. And the last time the Grizzlies traded us, a guy like that was Melton, and it did not go well for them. So I highly doubt they're going to trade him because they need depth, but he is expiring. But that would be a guy just to keep an eye on. If I think that Daryl would overpay for someone, it might be someone that's on like a veteran's minimum contract. But the tale of this offseason to me is don't overpay in trades for guys that then can just negotiate with you the next offseason and have you over a barrel. Because like,
oh yeah, 100%.
The Knicks, I know the Knicks are in a position where they could pay OG Anunoby, but like the Knicks with OG Anunoby, the Raptors with Quickly, all these like guys like I wouldn't even say that like there were massive overpays in those trades. I mean, obviously, I think the Knicks turned out pretty good with that trading Quickly and RJ Barrett for OG. I think that's aged pretty well for them. But just having to turn around and then trade and having to pay those guys 40, 30 million, 35 million, I think there's a reason why a lot of smart GMs don't do it. So they still have options. They have
when was the last time that a trade for a guy right at the tail end of his salary like really worked out for a team in terms.
I was going to say I can tell you where it didn't work out because Tobias Harris's contract just expired.
I understand.
We paid him almost $40 million a year. No, it only works out when you're trading for one of the best players in the NBA. Like it's very rare that you trade for the 50th best player in the NBA and then you have to re-up immediately and they don't get like a huge like deal and yeah. So long story short, I just think that right now the Sixers need to build out the rest of the roster, but be patient too, because I think getting Paul George is obviously massive, the biggest move of the offseason. And we'll see what happens from here. So let's just talk real quick. So we talked about Tobias to Detroit. I don't know what the fuck Detroit is doing. It makes literally zero sense to me. Is it just the Pistons overpay? You have to pay.
Do we owe our boy an apology? Do we owe
Toral Harris?
Terrell Harris?
No.
Is he getting Cooper agent? Flag? That's what I'm thinking. Terrell Harris is Cooper Flag's agent.
No, that would be pretty funny. No, do we owe Troy Weaver an apology? Is Troy Weaver innocent? Is it just the Pistons' brain?
He's not innocent.
I said this on the stream last night. I said this on the stream last night. The Wizards immediately they hire Troy Weaver, they draft a big, they sign Jonas Valanciunas, and then they re-up Rashawn Holmes' contract. Even though that's just trade bait, the Rashawn Holmes contract. I do think it's very funny that 3 of their first big moves were just to acquire bigs, basically, or at least rework big deals.
I have to wonder very honestly if maybe, and this is like a little bit like conspiracy Bill had here. But if the Pistons were in on Tobias from an ownership level early, and then effectively there's like, yeah, we'll just stick with this.
Yeah, that it's possible. Good culture guy.
Tobias Harris is a pretty good wing who's a great locker room guy. Please try and remember how washed we all thought Horford was after Philly. Detroit has to pay more as a small market bad team. That's not a bad signing at all, guys. Who do you think that was? That's right. It was our good friend, HP Basketball.
I mean, it's identical. It's identical to the Al Horford situation.
Yes, it's a 1-to-1.
Tobias Harris on like the mid-level or an equivalent would have been fine.
Sure.
But like, yeah, 26 it's insane.
This is what I'm saying, is that there are guys that got paid less money than him. And I know that Najee Marshall just had a above his head shooting season, and Derek Jones Jr. is coming off the best season of his career playing next to Luka. Sure. And maybe those guys regress a little bit, but like Tobias is like 32 now and like has regressed athletically. It's pretty obvious. Unless he was playing the entire season hurt, he's not the same level of athlete. He already wasn't a good athlete to start with. And like, if you're here's the thing. I'm all for acquiring theoretical spacers around Cade and their young guys. But like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris are not those spacers. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris need the ball. Like they will just take away possessions from your best players and they will just not, it's not going to help them develop in any real capacity. Like they're not part of, like, honestly, like they should, not that Batum would have ever gone there, but they should be targeting those kind of guys. Even like, at least Najee Marshall is going to bring you like defensive energy or whatever. And once again, yes, they would have to overpay to get those guys, but like, I would rather overpay 2 of those guys than to bring in Tobias Harris.
Free agent forward Garrett Temple has agreed to a 1-year deal to return to the Toronto Raptors. Who fucking cares? I want to know who he's repped. Oh, he's repped by Mark Bartelstein of Priority Sports. Let's fucking go. Yes.
Bartelstein time, baby.
Yes. Fuck. Oh, I was waiting on that one.
Bartelstein hive.
Damn.
Woo! Thank you, Woj.
My boy Bartelstein cannot fucking lose. Let's go.
He is the GOAT.
Woo!
Hold on. I do just want to point out here. I'm looking up his career earnings right now. I think Garrett Temple's going to make, like, with this contract, I think Garrett Temple is going to be one of those guys that he has now passed over $50 million made in his career.
I got to be honest with you. Garrett Temple was somebody Garrett Temple, to the point the comments are making, he was partly responsible for the union bargaining team. And I thought that it would be really funny if he was the one who was like, of all
Well,
the
that's
people,
why we deported him to Canada.
well, yeah, of all the people who could maybe lose their careers because of the new CBA, he was like the one I was like, this could happen. But no, he got another year.
No.
It would be so funny if they just sent all of the main like player reps to Toronto. Like CJ McCollum, you are now a Toronto Raptor. Grant Williams, just collect all of them. Also, the funniest thing, Piss in the comments saying like Woj shouting out the restaurant Klay was at. The funniest example of this was in there was a Gavoni article before the draft where he's talking about like what store Zach Risache was shopping at, like in Paris.
Oh my God.
I was like, what is going on with these agent favors? It's actually insane though. It's so pathetic.
So does anyone want to guess how old Garrett Temple is?
I know how old Garrett Temple is, so I
36.
31.
He's 38 years old.
He's 38.
38 years old. I do just want to point out here. Hold on,
young.
before we continue with the Garrett Temple played in college with Tyrese Thomas, who he is older than. Tyrese Thomas, who was drafted in 2007, 2006. I'm fairly certain that Garrett Temple was a freshman on that LSU team in 2006 because he was drafted into the NBA in 2010 maybe as a super senior. So I'm almost positive. And Tyrese Thomas was a top 5 pick. That's correct. He's older than Tyrese Thomas.
That's so funny.
So
incredible.
Tyrese Thomas was not the name I thought you were going to.
No, dude. I remember learning that fact like a year ago. I'm almost positive. Someone can look this up. I'm almost positive they cross over for 1 year at LSU.
It's 1 year at LSU. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. That was like I did the Obi-Wan. That's a name I have not heard in a long time.
Jesus Christ.
A long time.
Yep.
So to your earlier question, what are the Pistons doing? I do have an actual conspiracy. This is based on a joke, by the way, that many people have said, but very specifically, I have to check what their actual at, but Pakumf Dadiate, one of our Knicks listeners brings up, which is that the entire Pistons decision-making tree is about giving Cade as many excuses as possible.
Yeah, that's piss. That's why they drafted Ron Holland. They hired JB Bickerstaff. That is a great.
Oh,
bit.
Piss! I didn't realize you were in the comments right now.
Yeah.
Yes, but yes, Piss. But I kind of think maybe that might be true if they are if this new brain trust is eventually planning on moving off Cade. Maybe wouldn't it be great to be able to say,
did they max him? Like Shams?
They were gonna max him no matter what.
Wasn't there some debate about this? Wasn't there like
Shams reported it, and then Bobby Marks came out and was like, "It has not happened."
Bobby Marks saying that was the funniest part about
it. Getting owned by Bobby Marks, not a good look for Shams.
Yeah, getting put in the cuck chair by
it's currently
it sucks. Yeah,
it's currently it was intend to sign.
Okay,
so it's
but then again, like, what are they going to trade him a year from now? They can't trade him until his deal kicks in.
Exactly, and you have to be able to provide credible excuses to Piss's point about the
Wiggins of it all.
Exactly, you have to keep.
Well, Wiggins was just in a bad spot, and you know whatever. I kind of am a believer that if you put Cade on a different team, that he would be fine. Like I know I was like the OG Cade hater, but I'm like the Pistons are the worst situation possible for him. And once again, yes, no, he is not the guy that everyone thought he was going to be coming out. But also, if you put him on a team as a third option, he would probably work a lot. Like if he was on the Sixers right now, he would be great. If he was on a handful of teams, he would probably be really good. But I think that the Pistons just have no way of getting there. And signing Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. don't get you any closer.
They're gonna win under 20 games again.
Yeah,
it's insane.
For sure,
and still get the fifth pick.
Hammer the under.
What's their roster even look like?
Dude, they fucking buried Ron Holland and Asar behind Tobias. Think about that.
So Tobias starts at the 4. So they have Tobias at the 4, Duren at the 5.
Fontecchio at the 3, probably.
Fontecchio at the 3. Cade and Ivy still as the backcourt, I assume.
God, that's disgusting.
Yeah, that's so bad.
Okay, so that's their starting.
Maybe you start Holland.
Yeah.
You got to start Holland.
So you bring Ivy. Here's the thing. I think Ivy has to be traded. I've been saying this. It's like
his value is so,
You just drafted Ron Holland, who you want to have on the ball. Asar is functionally useless without the ball. And if you're going down this road where like you're bringing in Tim Hardaway, who's going to soak up possessions on the ball, Tobias is going to soak up possessions on the ball, like you're just getting to the point where too many players need to have the ball and they're not going to play as a unit at all. And then you're looking down your bench and you're going, okay, I mean, look, Marcus Sasser is 23 and he's probably just a bench guard, but like he's another guy that's going to come off the bench for them. And like Ivy's just never going to be put in a position. He's also disappointed his first few years in the league. Like, I think that I would change. If there's one guy that's kind of the odd man out there, I would bet on him getting traded this offseason.
They also have Tim Hardaway, who they're going to have to play because he makes a lot of money.
Yeah,
and they specifically wanted shooting. Yeah, I don't even. Yeah, like Sasser might not even play. He at least
will shoot off the catch. Hardaway.
Yeah,
Hardaway will put up a ton of shots, and like honestly, they kind of need a guy like Fontecchio. Fontecchio is probably the best like glue role player that they have, and then. Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to put up a ton of shots, and they need volume shooters. So, and look, I know the difference between being on the Sixers and the Pistons for Tobias and Tim Hardaway Jr. They'll probably be better off with like I think they would fucking throw a party if they win 25 games next year.
There's no way.
I think there's no way.
NBA by far.
Yeah,
not even close.
Because if you think about the talent across the league right now, like think about what we're talking about these teams in the East right now, like the Sixers, the Celtics. We didn't even mention like the Cavs, the Pacers, the Magic, the teams that are like in that like second tier that could like easily make a jump up in this upcoming season. And then like even like a team that's like kind of in piss and shit right now in the Bulls has way more talent than the Pistons. They just have more talent. There's just more NBA guys on those teams. Than the Pistons. Like the Pistons are just so far behind. Like
them and the Wizards. The Wizards are going to be really bad.
But the Wizards are doing it on purpose.
You know who else is going to be really bad, by the way? I want to credit the Nets.
Yeah, the Nets are also doing it on purpose. There are two teams that are doing it on purpose, and they might be the only teams that have a chance to have a worse record than the Pistons next year. And I don't.
The Wizards roster is so much cleaner, though. Like I actually really like Jonas for them next to Sar. I think that makes a lot of sense. But like the Wizards, Sam's guy,
they're cooking.
You have I'm going to go Bill here, but it's just like the Pistons. You have so many me guys. Brogdon, Poole, Kuzma.
Who cares about those guys? You're trading Kuzma. Poole.
Are you? I feel like
cares?
Kuzma doesn't have a market. I feel like that was kind of. I feel like we were hoodwinked.
Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with Ingram. If I think the Kings will come back to it if there's. No,
maybe that's possible. Yeah.
But I don't know. Like Bub Carrington, fuck yeah, let's go.
Another bucket.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to see them. They still have like Kispert, Bilal. Year 2 Bilal might be making some strides. Like they have better direction, I think, than the Pistons, kind of without question to me.
Their roster at least makes more sense, like Rob was saying.
Yeah.
They'll still be really bad.
They'll still be terrible, but at least they're going to be playing something identifiable as NBA basketball, I think, in a way that, like, last year they were not. I think that this is going to be more structured now. Who did they hire? Yeah. They hired someone.
Their interim, Brian Keefe.
Yeah, Brian Keefe's fine. He's good, actually, a little bit. So
he had one good game against the Celtics last year, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Corey Kispert was cooking.
That's right.
And who's now Sam's favorite player.
Did Twitter just go down for anyone else, by the way?
No, you're banned.
Damn, it's very possible.
You're out of here.
All the slop has come to a halt now. Good. Now we don't have to hear about two-way signings.
No, I wanted to hear about two-way signings.
I don't give a fuck about.
There's almost like nothing. There is a lot. There are like a lot of trades left. There are not like that many free agents out there. It's like DeMar.
So let's talk a little bit. Just to run through the other Sixers that have left. Melton went to the Warriors. What do we have a thought on that? Any thoughts? I mean, it's a 1-year prove-it deal. I think it's fine. Yeah. I just think
the Warriors back work.
That's the problem. Is that's why it's a 1-year prove-it deal.
I mean, good for him.
They've done a good job rehabbing these guys for 1 year. That's how they won the 2022 title, was doing that with Otto Porter and Gary
Payton.
Gary Payton Jr. or the second. I
Yeah.
mean. So
I was kind of confused as to why they didn't just keep Josh Green like Bert says. I would have just kept Josh Green as opposed to signing Melton.
Did they flip Josh Green?
No, so Josh Green is heading to they dumped him to Charlotte. They'd rather have the
Klay's going to Dallas. They got a trade exception.
They got a trade exception.
So the reported deal that has not been confirmed because they're apparently trying to expand the trade is the Warriors get a trade exception. Klay goes to the Mavericks, and then Josh Green goes to the Hornets.
Okay.
But apparently it's not legal too. So
yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff like so again 3-team trades.
Why are you so confused, Sam? I need to.
What?
I'm just confused as why you're confused.
Charlotte just got Josh Green for free.
Just take him into their cap space. I like it. I mean, like, I'm not like I've talked about like
weird. No one else with cap space is doing that, but yeah, sure.
Josh Green's still an idea player to me, but like I like the moments I've seen from him.
The Spurs sort of
why did the Spurs not do that? Like, or the Pistons? That's a much better fucking use of money than Tobias Harris.
Well, I think that the thing with the Josh Green thing was the reason why that the Mavericks got Quentin Grimes was because they were okay trading Josh Green, and I think that the Pistons were like, we don't want to continue paying more guards until we figure out what we have on the roster is. I definitely would have preferred to take in Josh Green. There's at least some upside there. Like, I think that Josh Green could be a guy, and he only makes like $12 million a year. It's not a ton, but this is, but I just want to point out, this is why I don't want Grant Williams, because teams are like, even if you're like Norm Powell isn't a terrible player and he makes $17 million and people don't want to touch that contract with a 10-foot pole. Like, it's hard to move these medium-sized contracts for guys. Does he? I mean, he's one of the best catch-and-shoot players in the NBA. He attacks closeouts. He's a ball stopper, sure, but like he plays well off of stars. Like, I'm just saying, I think that like it is harder to move these medium-sized contracts than we think it is, unless they're expiring.
I don't know. Also, Grant Williams makes like $6 million less than that. So
what does he make? $12 million? That's what Josh Green makes.
Yeah.
So apparently the Hornets are just the dumping grounds for these contracts, which 12. I don't think it's a bad. I think it's a smart play.
They are for the
better than any free agent upside left for anyone that would ever realistically go to Charlotte.
They are paying 2 second-round picks for Josh Green. It's not.
That's fine. They got 3 for taking on Reggie Jackson.
Exactly.
I'm not saying Grant Williams makes more money than Josh Green. Chat. I'm saying that Grant Williams makes less money than Norm Powell. Yes.
Yeah. Can we discuss the Lauri Markkanen thing? Like,
yeah, I wanted to talk about that because this is a theory I loved in the Discord. I just want to get this out there. So people think in the Discord that Sean Marks and Danny Ainge colluded to basically say, oh, we were going to trade for Mikal Bridges, but the price was just way too high, and he wanted to go to the Knicks so they could basically create a fake market to trade a ton of shit for Lauri Markkanen. And that's really what Danny Ainge wanted to do, but ownership said, no, you have to trade for Mikal Bridges, Drew Holiday last year, those kind of things. I kind of buy it. Does it not scream Danny Ainge to be like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, why the one thing we know about Danny Ainge is that he is a fucking contendership sicko. He always wants to have a path to contendership. And he knows that if Lauri comes back, they're going to be too good to like fully tank and have a shot at one of the top 7 picks in the next draft. And he knows that they're just going to continue on this mediocrity wheel. And next year they could tank for Cooper Flag. They could tank for whoever's at the top of the draft. And then they have all these young prospects, they could get more picks for Lauri Markkanen. Like, I kind of think that is what happened. I'm buying the conspiracy.
I don't know if it's fully colluding, as in they called each other and decided that, but I do think that Danny Ainge
realized, hey, this is what we can get.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is even if it is not a full collusion, I do think Danny Ainge is, like, again, ownership for Utah, like, they don't care about, like, winning. Yeah. They care about filling up them Salt Lake, them Salt Lake seats.
Yeah.
And
I don't think that I think that right now they would be. They're going to sell out anyway. They're the only. I know they're getting a hockey team, but they're the only gig in town, really. Like they sold out with the last 2 years, and or is losing Lauri Markkanen really going to be them? No, they'll be a fun young team next year. They'll get even more picks to make if they like. They'll have to overpay for guys in trades because no one wants to go to Utah anyway. If they ever make star trades or they ever make. If they don't end up making those picks, if they trade for high caliber role players. So like I kind of think that they should just I like the idea of them trading Lauri Markkanen before they have to pay him. And then they have a Collier, Cody Williams they just got in this draft, Filipowski, just name they might not, none of those guys might be anything. Keontae might not be anything, but you're at least going to find out. Like you'll find out what those guys look like. And then you can make decisions from there, and you have all of Cleveland's picks, all of Minnesota's picks, and then you'll have potentially. I think what he's trying to do right now is because the two teams that are rumored right now are the Spurs and the Warriors with Lauri Markkanen,
and the Kings now too.
And the Kings. Oh wait, the Kings were thrown in.
Yeah, the Kings have been.
The Kings don't have enough.
I understand.
They would just want Keegan, and they'll just won't do it.
Yeah,
that's every Kings trade. Also, I don't blame the Kings because do we know Lauri Markkanen wants to extend there?
Yeah, the Kings just don't have enough. I mean, the Spurs make so much sense for him.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Warriors are
perfect.
doing.
How old is he?
27.
Yeah.
Spurs would be great.
It wouldn't be Devin Vassell. It would be like Keldon and then like 6 first-round picks. Probably.
I was going to say, and here's the thing. I think what Danny wants is those Atlanta picks. I think Danny sees where Atlanta's going right now, and he says, because he doesn't want the Spurs picks because they have Wemby. Like, maybe next year, okay, whatever. But like in the if you trade them Lauri Markkanen and they have Wemby, Lauri Markkanen, Vassell, all the like that semblance of like normalcy with their team, they're going to be competitive at least. I think they'll probably win like 30 games next year. And if that's the case, at least 30, maybe 35. If Wemby takes a leap, it could be even more. Who knows? But that would be such a good front court, that 4-5 with Lauri and Wemby. And then like I think you would be better off getting the picks that they got for DeJounte Murray from the Spurs that are the Hawks picks, that are unprotected picks in the next 3 drafts if you are the Jazz. And I think that's what Danny's trying to get right now.
Come with me, okay?
I know what you're going to say.
Galaxy Brain. What Danny Ainge's actual plan is to send Lauri Markkanen as a sleeper agent into the San Antonio Spurs. One day Lauri Markkanen, in his like very Finnish way, is going to go up to him and go, "Oh, I see you're reading Brandon Sanderson. Did you know that he's a part of an organization called the Church of Latter-day Saints?" And then Victor Wembanyama will be like, "Really? Is that like the Cosmere? Like, tell me more."
Then Kyle Filipowski's going to call.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, everyone starts getting together. All the heavy hitters, Mitt Romney, Jimmer Fredette, fresh off his volleyball Olympic gold.
Let's go.
All the stars are out.
Yeah.
And
the Avengers of Mormons.
Yes. The Mormon Avengers all got Brandon Flowers from the Killers.
Let's
they
go.
get them all out there.
Andy Reid's coming.
Andy Reid. Yes. Like
Mitt Romney.
They make one of the biggest free agency pitches we've ever seen to Wemby in 2032 or whenever that is when he's there.
This is just like when Dwayne Wade took part ownership in the Jazz, and then a month later we heard that Donovan Mitchell wants to be in Miami, and I was like, "Oh, convenient." That's definitely not a sleeper cell at all.
Awesome.
But
the KG trade, I'm hand up the KG trade too with Kevin McHale.
Oh, absolutely,
absolutely a sleeper cell fucking job. Yeah,
I do just want to point out here a hilarious thing that is happening right now. Jake Fisher has reported that the Orlando Magic are working on an extension for Jonathan Isaac.
Is it a lifetime extension?
How many times do I have to tell people they're never trading Jonathan Isaac?
He's their mascot.
He is literally Udonis Haslem, but further right.
Also, Trill, I don't know if you're allowed to say sleeper cells when you just sent James Harden to detonate.
True.
But
the Clippers had a sleeper cell of their own, and Nicholas Batum, who then turned around and backstabbed us, said, "Oh, I'm going to retire," and then went back to the Clippers.
This is Trill is learning
you're
from
somehow
me the
more mad about
aggrieved.
the two.
Yeah, Trill is learning from me the aggrieved winner shtick.
When you
is,
win, you're
yeah.
still upset even when you win. I
Yeah.
won, but at what cost?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So effectively, you traded James Harden for Paul George and 2 picks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great trade. I mean, also they took on the PJ Tucker contract in the process. Here's the thing, Rob, and this is what I wanted to ask you. Why didn't the Clippers just get ahead of this and trade us Paul George last year?
So I've heard a couple different things. One, I heard from somebody who was more of a definitely Clippers side person, and this has not been confirmed by anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That Harden, Kawhi, and Paul George did all agree that they would take less money.
Okay.
I did hear that from one person who usually has some, sources in the Clippers locker room and front office. That's one thing. So maybe they just thought he would. I don't know if they just thought he'd cave or change his mind or like, hey man, you promised. It's odd that hasn't been reported. I'm guessing there's going to be some sort of long form article about all this that comes out. Maybe that will get mentioned there. The other thing is, I mean, the reason why they didn't trade him last year is because, I mean, they wanted to win the title this past year, right? They thought they were good enough. Maybe they would have. I mean, I don't think they would have won 4 series, but like if Kawhi was healthy, the biggest
in
if
this
in the
West,
NBA,
they could have got to the NBA Finals.
They could have beaten the Mavericks. They could have beaten the Thunder. The Wolves would have been a real tough matchup.
The Wolves were a weird matchup for them all year. I talked about it on the podcast a lot throughout the year. I was like, I don't like that. I was like, if the Wolves get the Clippers, I'm taking the Wolves. But that was
like if they make the conference
really the
finals, like if they make the conference finals, maybe Paul George just comes back. So I think that's why. I mean, the other thing I heard, and this is something that has been confirmed like by multiple people who are not Clippers related from what they heard, is that there has not been like a active negotiation between Paul George and the Clippers in like several months. Okay. Like this has been over.
They knew they were like, it's never happened. They were like, we're never going to cave. You're never going to cave. Let's just take it down to the end here and see if we can. Do you think that they ever realistically worked on? Because I said on the last stream, the Warriors stuff is all bullshit, guys. If you're falling for these fucking things, the Warriors offered blah, 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 blah. There was not real offers made. And if they made offers, they weren't deals that the Clippers were ever going to take to send Paul George to a conference rival. Let's be honest. So, like, I don't know exactly what those were, but I think a lot of that is just Warriors propaganda to placate the fan base about not wanting to spend anymore.
Yeah, I mean, how the question for me is, like, how on board was Paul George? Because, I mean, the things I've heard from around the NBA is, like, Paul George, the Sixers, has been done for several weeks.
It sounds like all the Shams tweet in retrospect. I know people were like, this is all betting stuff. Like I said about the draft,
it's tampering cover.
It's tampering cover, guys.
Yeah.
Like the Sixers would not have operated the way that they operated, not making any trades, not letting anything leak, whatever, if they weren't worried about getting tampering stuff. Like I think that this was pretty much, and Joel on the set of the NBA Finals making the eyes at Paul George, like, there were signs that this was already done. And by the way, no one gives a fuck about tampering. It ruined the beginning of free agency last night, where we should have been able to react to all of these deals coming in. We love tampering. We love tampering, folks.
One of the biggest tamperers ever.
I was very nasty what they did.
Bogdanovich.
CJ McCollum.
We tampered him.
I do have to say, at least the Sixers didn't do their normal bit of tampering for the stupidest people to tamper for this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, Drew. So I love that from the Timeline podcast, one of those guys, I can't remember who it was, tweeted and said Drew Eubanks ruined free agency because they tampered for Drew Eubanks last year, lost the 2nd round pick, and ever since we are now not going to get. But yeah, Daniel House and PJ Tucker, obviously not. It ruined a national holiday, really, is what I'm trying to get at here. Like, the opening of free agency is always for all of us to react and celebrate and not have to stay up till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I thought Zach Lowe had kind of an interesting take on this that kind of rang pretty truthful to me, like regarding like the Clippers end of things. Because honestly, I think them being scared of the second apron is kind of bullshit. Like, I think Ballmer Ballmer has the money. Everyone keeps sending the tweet in the chat about Ballmer being the 5th or 6th richest man in the world now. Like, I do think that part of this was more about them lining up contracts and kind of planning out their future than it was actually about giving money to Paul George. Like, I think, like, because it sounds like they were willing to do this for 3 years. You're still paying the repeater and still getting into the second apron for a couple years, like doing that. And then James Harden's coming off the books in 2 years. So, like, what?
You know, the Harden thing only being 2 years, Rob, do you think that was because they're trying to make it so that he could do, like, he essentially just wants to do, like, the LeBron 1-and-1 style thing?
Yeah.
He'll probably want to finish his career there, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I mean, there was Harden was not going anywhere else. Like, people were making jokes about how nobody's talking about Harden in free agency. Harden was not leaving Los Angeles. Yeah. I don't, as much as people, you know, the Harden ask out thing and he gets tired of places, I suspect he would prefer to stay in Los Angeles the rest of his career. How long that will be, I don't know. I mean, he wants to keep making money. He's good enough to keep making money. But, like, is he a guy who's going to play until he's like 40? I don't know about that. So I think honestly, it's like,
though. That's the underrated. People do, like, he loves basketball. Like, that is the thing about
James. He's always working out. He's always practicing. Yeah. He's going to be like a Jamal Crawford type when he retires. He's going to do like the Pro Am tour and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
He's gonna go to China and wear Maury Sucks jerseys.
Oh, and like, he would. Harden would, like, after retiring from the NBA, he'd go to China for a year and make so much money.
I'm not kidding. I have a friend who lives in China who's like legitimately like thinks that a Chinese team will give Harden partial, like, their version of partial ownership.
It's like the Saudi Arabia thing for soccer players.
There you go. Yeah.
And just
posted up with President Xi.
Yeah.
The Harden 1+1 thing is really interesting because, I mean, it would seem like the Clippers, hey, like, if next year they're like not very good, even with Derrick Jones Jr., Nick Batum, let's say like Kawhi is never able to get healthy or he's not a superstar anymore, and it's like maybe they're like a fringe play-in team, like, do they let Harden walk? But, like, they don't have picks for 4 years. So, like, it really depends. I mean, I've heard, and this is, I don't know, if Kawhi has a really good year or, like, is good up until the trade deadline, them trying to flip him for picks for some team, I don't think is out of the question. I think the Intuit thing is overblown. Like, I think, like, they need to be contending in Intuit. They keep saying that. I just don't really know. Like, I think if a team is fun, if like a team has good players that people want to watch, I think they'll show up, they'll watch games. I don't think they need to be like a championship team just for the opening of a new stadium. So, like, that part was always a little like,
I think
like,
there's going to be excitement around it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think they're going to be competitive enough.
Right.
Like, the one thing I will say about James Harden is that he is still one of the best floor raisers in the NBA. And if you give him scraps, he can still win you 40 games.
I mean, like,
in the West, it's going to be tough though, especially if Kawhi misses a lot of time.
I mean, Kawhi, I mean, that's just the thing with Kawhi. Is just like, and I think that's like kind of underrated. And I know people make fun because it's like, yeah, Kawhi is always injured. Well, Embiid is always injured. I think PG was probably just kind of sick of Kawhi not being healthy in the playoffs, which is like, it's understandable. But I mean, like, right now, like, you know, their starting lineup would be Harden, Derrick Jones Jr., Kawhi, Nick Batum, Ivica Zubac. That's a really good starting five, man. Like, the bench is a little shakier. They need to figure out the rust thing, but, like, they still have Norm Powell. They still have Terrence Mann. They need to get, like, a backup center. But, like,
you can find backup centers. That's an interesting. What did you think of the rust to the Nuggets stuff? Did you hear Jokic is the one that's apparently behind it? I know they're boys.
He really is this generation's LeBron.
There you go. Lay GM hands the baton to
the Russ Lakers thing is so weird because, like, the NBA loves Russ. Like, people around the NBA, coaches, players, like, they all love Russ. Like, the Lakers thing is like
no one ever says a bad word about him except for LeBron. Anyway,
a total aberration. Yeah. The Lakers thing was just a total bad situation. Whatever. It's a weird fit. Like, he's a better regular season player than Reggie Jackson, like, clearly. Yeah. But, like, he can't shoot. He was so bad in the playoffs.
Jokic
I don't know.
makes
Like,
non-shooters work though. That is the
It
one
would be
he does really well.
funny if late career Russell Westbrook gets the bump that gives him but like he'd be playing for the nerd team. He'd be playing with Jokic. Maybe we get some shine back on Russell Westbrook.
They do need an extra ball handler. Like that's the thing is like everyone always talks about how like the supporting cast let down Jokic, and I know Jamal Murray was hurt and whatever in the playoffs, but like, I think the Nuggets fans have been talking about this all offseason was like they just couldn't play Reggie Jackson. And I know, look, Russ is not a playoff player. I mean, I think he's proven time and time again that he's not a guy that's going to kind of step up his game, but like they need a guy who can handle the ball that is not Jamal Murray or Jokic. And they lost KCP. And look, KCP is a really good player. I'm not saying Russell Westbrook would replace him, but can we stop talking about him like he's prime Gary Payton, guys? Like I think it sucks that they got cheap and they let him walk, and I would not want to do that if it were my star player. But like I think that they're going to figure out a way to replace him sometime in the next year or two, and I think they'll end up being fine.
Yeah. I mean,
he's very good, but also like I don't know. I just feel like KCP's gotten a little bit overrated in this whole thing. He was so important to the Nuggets is the problem.
I will say, I think people keep talking about Christian Brown. If I was the Nuggets, I'd try really hard to make Julian Strawther the starter.
Interesting.
For the shooter.
I just think his defense could be. I like Strawther as like a shooter spacer, like too.
Yeah.
But the defense is always tough. He's just like those shooters take so long to get put strength on and become like legit defenders.
Yeah. But he's interesting to me because Brown is just not like the shooting just is so variable. But like the rebounding is really helpful. I mean, they do like
and his
such
defense
a ridiculous rebounding. Yeah. But the Russ thing, like I don't like what the trade would be. I don't know. Like the Clippers are not taking back Zeke Naji. I think it could work out where it's like Russ for like straight up for Jalen Pickett. I think would probably do it. Maybe the Clippers get like a second or two for doing that. I don't know, but like. I've heard, I mean, the Nuggets people are all saying like Jokic specifically requested Russ. There's momentum there.
Interesting.
It could also be like a really weird 3-team deal where like he goes elsewhere. The Clippers could also just end up buying him out and he could just go to the Nuggets. And like, it's so silly. Like he picked up his option because like he wasn't going to get more than the minimum in free agency. And like his $4 million deal is like $700,000 more than the minimum. It's so funny.
I was gonna say at his age he would make $3.3 million.
Yeah, so he's making like $700,000 more for like
that's what DeLon Wright got from the Bucks today. By the way, I like that pickup. Little side. I actually thought they should have traded for him at the last deadline.
I thought so too. I thought that would have been.
I mean, again, I'm going to do the thing everyone makes fun of me for, but like he was pretty good in the playoffs against the Celtics.
DeLon Wright is athletic enough and skilled enough to stay on the court in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and for a team that really lacks anyone that is like he's a guard, but he's like a wing size guard. He's not quite like strong and big enough to be like guarding 3s and 4s all the time, but like. For a team that really struggles with point attack defense, I think that he'll be able to play like 20, 25 minutes a night for them and really help.
Yeah. He was great. I mean, even outside of the 5-3 game, he played pretty good defense. He was like genuinely like the Heat's like 4th or 5th best player in that series.
He was also really good for the Hawks a few years ago in the playoffs. I remember I was like, is DeLon Wright just like a playoff riser? Like what the
yeah.
I do think that like part of it is the fact that he is like fairly athletic and you just have to have like a level of athleticism to stay on the court in the playoffs. But I think he's like, he'll be one of the better veterans minimum guy from this cycle, I imagine.
Yeah. Belt to ass might be done. I don't know. I don't know if there's to be a Pat Bev team.
I was gonna say, is he done?
I don't know what team would you know what I could see is
I would bring him back. I love Pat Bev so much. I couldn't. He would have to be our like 3rd string point guard, but I would love to have him.
I also wonder. Like I know the Wolves loved having.
Yeah,
him.
they did.
I could see him being like a guy on the Wolves, but yeah, the Warriors. I don't think so.
No, I'm trying to say. I don't know if he's gonna. I would like to see him go to a team that maybe isn't a contender, and just like do his whole Pat Bev thing. For like not the Pistons, but like
I was just gonna say that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on him, but like
the Bulls make sense. Yeah, the Bulls.
He was already on the Bulls. He's from Chicago, like something like that. Just like although he might kill Josh Giddey, which is something to consider. But yeah, so I think the Clippers, considering they lost Paul George for nothing, to turn around and get Derek Jones Jr. and Batum, it turned out better than I expected, even if I think that they're going to be a worse team next year without Paul George.
I don't even want to talk about it. I don't know. The Kevin Porter Jr. thing is just,
it's
like,
gross.
It's disgusting.
I would be legitimately happy with this offseason if it wasn't for that. And it's just like, God.
Yeah. It's so tough. Did you see the thing that Lucas posted that was like, we're making it? It's the Tim Robinson sketch. He's like, we're making a team of bad people. We are only going to sign bad people.
Yeah.
I was like, that is not a marketing efficiency, Lawrence Frank.
It's so
this
bad.
Is not good. Don't do this.
It's so bad.
The meme of the kids cheating off each other, and it's Lawrence Frank looking at the Charlotte Hornets and taking notes.
People keep making Miles Bridges jokes. I don't think that will happen.
That would be awful.
Yeah, that would be bad. Yeah. LaVine,
speaking of,
I wanted to ask you,
and I don't want to put LaVine in that category, by the way. I'm not
sure
LaVine's a bad person.
Has LaVine become undervalued, by the way?
That's what I was going to ask, was that I think that, look, LaVine, just because he doesn't get along with some people doesn't mean he's a bad person. I just want to say, from the perspective of that, like, buy low idea, would you consider, like, you could get him for what? PJ Tucker's contract? Like, they just want to get off the contract. So you could do PJ Tucker, Norm Powell, and Amir Coffey, I think, gets you there money-wise.
It would be really, really tight. They'd need to find, if they could save a little bit of money on the Russ swing, I think that would clear up enough for it to be Norm, PJ, and like either Amir or Bones or Kobe Brown, I think.
If you guys get LaVine, like a LaVine working off of Harden, that I like that. Like I think that backcourt would be really good. You could play DJJ at the 3 and put Kawhi at the 4. Have Batum come off the bench with Man. You would still have Terrence Mann.
Yep.
Like, that's a really good top 7. That's just a lot of talent. And like, the difference between paying Paul George and the difference between paying Zach LaVine is that you're just giving up contracts for mostly guys that would be like bench players on your team anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if you really just think about it as like just him straight up for Norm Powell, I mean, he's just a much better version of Norm Powell.
Exactly.
They're very similar players.
Yeah. What if Norm Powell could have like an all-star level season from his impact?
Exactly. If they would give up assets for LaVine, I would not be into it. But like, if it's literally just contracts, like I would definitely do that. I would much rather take a gamble on LaVine than DeMar DeRozan.
I was going to say the DeMar DeRozan, because I actually had it written down here. So there's just no market for DeMar DeRozan. I mean, he's just a hard player to fit on teams.
So Trill, what about an undervalued DeMar DeRozan on the Sixers? Maybe.
I'll be honest. I talked about it last night on the stream. That was the name that I heard, and I heard another person who said they had also heard it, but I don't think that. I just don't see it happening. I really like. Morey has had 7 different times he could. It's the Malcolm Brogdon thing to me. If a player's always available in trade rumors, free agency stuff, and Morey has never once been linked to him seriously in like, they're definitely interested, I highly doubt it. But if you want to talk about the Chris Haynes, everyone's saying DeMar to the Lakers sounds like it's probably going to happen, which, I mean, DeMar's fit on so many teams is just so hard for me.
If he accepts a 6th man role, but like, even still, you can't play him with
for that.
But like, but the also thing is like, if the fit is bad with stars, it's like, if you're playing LeBron 36 minutes, like you play DeMar like 18 and you're paying him $60 million.
Here's the difference between 2021, when they could have done this, when they decided to go get Russ instead of DeMar, and now. LeBron is not LeBron anymore. Like, LeBron coasts during the regular season. He has fit in more. I've jokingly called him like a super Nick Batum, where he's playing like more off the ball. He's a little bit more of a connector. He shoots more threes.
He is the LeBron James of Nick Batum.
Yeah, exactly. He has become the LeBron James of Nick Batum's. And the reason why I say this is because during the regular season, you're going to want guys that can kind of, the idea behind getting DeMar on the Clippers is because Kawhi's going to miss a lot of time, and you need to have like a different kind of team when you're building around the Zions. I mean, Embiid to a lesser extent, because he really didn't miss that many regular season games until this past season, but like the Embiids, the Kawhis, the Zions, and DeMar at least can do that. But when everyone's healthy, you want your team to fit well. And like, then it's like Austin Reeves and him have a little bit of overlap. AD likes to live in the mid range. They want to run like a DHO hub offense style, similar to the Sixers with AD as the hub. And like, where does DeMar fit? He's not a spacer. He's not like going to be super active off the ball, and defensively he has issues too. So like, I don't know. I don't like that, but I guess if it's like the market is just non-existent and it literally just costs you like take D'Angelo Russell's contract and here's some seconds and we'll take DeMar at like $18 million a year for 2 years. Sure. I guess.
I mean, it seems like he wants to contend. If I were him, I would want to go back to the Spurs again. I mean, the lack of shooting with Wemby, but like he could, because they don't have a great ball handler. Like you can, Vassell can do off-ball stuff. Chris Paul is like, can hit spot up threes. That would make a lot of sense. And he and Pop have like a great relationship. But I think he probably ends up going to the Lakers. He and LeBron are really close, which is, if I was DeMar, I would hate LeBron for destroying.
Yeah, exactly.
But like they're really close.
And also he's from LA. We just saw him, dancing on stage saying they not like us, and then Giddey gets traded and he wants out, as people have pointed out. So
okay. Hear me out. Mr. DeRozan, I have this. So you want to go to a contender, right? Who better for a contender than to play in China for the contenders for control of the world economy?
Let's go.
DeMar, tell me DeMar wouldn't be a Starberry style like star like in China. He would be like
he would be Michael Jordan, because if you squint hard enough watching DeMar DeRozan, you could be like, oh, this is Michael Jordan.
Because the people always make the joke, oh, like go play in China, like he actually would be like a god in China. Like, and this thing, Joe Biden, it's going off the rails. Trump, China's going to take the baton soon.
This is
DeMar, you could come back to be the imperator of the Chinese States of America. You could be the ruler of the Chinese States of America, but you have to go now. You need like those 5 years in there to
get there before Harden gets there.
Yeah, Chairman Jinping will send you back over. You're familiar with America. You were born and raised here.
Love it.
You'll be the greatest leader in the history of this country. So I'm just saying now is a good time to start thinking about the post-basketball career, and you can kind of lay the seeds if you go right now.
Exactly. Yep. No, I agree. I think it would bridge the gap probably the most between America and China since I would say maybe Mao and Nixon in the 70s. I would say it's something equivalent to that on a global scale.
Yes.
That's something like that. But I actually do have to run to the bathroom real quick, so you guys can continue to cook while I'm gone. But we just have a few more things to talk about when I get back.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna hurt Trill, and we're gonna.
Oh, I was gonna talk about the roster for the Liaoning Flying Leopards.
Okay.
OJ Mayo is one of their guards right now. Sharif Cooper. Like, you tell me you put, Kevin Zhang isn't there. You put him next to them. Eric Moreland's playing center.
I kind of like that fit. Like, they need, the problem is like, would OJ Mayo let DeMar cook? Because OJ Mayo's been over there a while. You know what I'm saying? He might not take to the fresh-faced young DeMar DeRozan like stealing his thunder. So I think that. I think he would need to be like a little bit more careful. He might need more of a less star power team. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you could look at the Zhejiang Golden Bulls.
Oh, there we go.
No, DeMar will push him to Taiwan.
Look, the biggest star on the Golden Bulls right now is maybe like, I would argue maybe Reggie Perry, I think, is playing for them.
Let's go. Sign him up.
DeMar, Malik Newman's over there.
DeMar, I have such an idea for you. This is how we save America. Not necessarily democracy, but this is how we save America. So let's go. This is our last pivot point. DeMar, you're our only hope.
Trade Safe America.
I wanna spite Trill and talk about this while he's gone. I kind of love the Hartenstein signing for the Thunder. I really thought he was going to end up on the Magic, and I think he's almost exactly what they need. Like, I wanted them to get like kind of a big body guy, but like Hartenstein's got like, with all the floaters and stuff and with the passing, he's got like the rim pressure and a lot of these other things. I think that it gives OKC that the option to go to that Chet at the 4 big look that I like have wanted them to have in the back pocket for like the playoffs later now. I think I'm probably going to pick the Thunder out of the West now.
Right now,
they're going to be good. They're going to be good.
I mean, yeah. I think they'll still start with Chet at the 5, but yeah, I mean, you can play him with Hartenstein definitely. Their defense is going to be so good. It's going to be
Caruso point of attack, Hartenstein protecting the rim and rebounding. By the way, by far, not only did the Sixers get their biggest free agency acquisition of all time with Paul George, Isaiah Hartenstein's by far the biggest free agent that they've ever gotten. And they had to overpay to do it. They had to pay him $29 or $30 million next year, 29. But the third year's of team option, when those Chet and J-Dub extensions kick in, I think I said in the last stream, we're 3 years removed from the SGA Supermax first year. So yeah, OKC's set up great right now, and they still have not dipped into really any of their picks. They got Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins back on like decent contracts. Like, they're going to be deep. They're going to be good. And by the way, they just got Sam's number 1 guy in the draft in Topic, who's not even going to play next year. Like, they've really set themselves up well to contend next year, potentially win the West, and then open up a window of 5 to 10 years where they're just set up really nicely.
Yeah, I'm glad they overpaid Hartenstein instead of letting him. I think it was really important that they get someone good, and I think Hartenstein fits a lot of what they want to do.
And will he still have a billion picks? Like, here's the thing. Even if this was a mistake, and I don't think it is, I think it is a good move to your point. They can get out of it. They can just get out of it. They can pay. They are in a rare position where they do have a effectively complete team and the assets to make up for any mistakes.
Yep. And at a minimum, they now have a guy where you don't have to wear Chet down the whole season. Right. Like, Chet, you could go to Chet at the 5 if you want in the playoffs, and you can use Hartenstein as more of like what Bill was talking about with Edey, the idea of like throwing him in off the bench and like kind of having him. Like, if you're in a Nuggets matchup, you need a big body. Like, no one's going to stop Jokic or Embiid. Hartenstein didn't obviously stop Embiid by any means in that series, but you just need someone that will exhaust them. You need someone that can at least give you those 6 fouls and kind of just have a big body to throw at them, and just slow them down a little bit so that your offense can keep up with them. So
my biggest commentary last year or during the Mavs series this past season was there were far too many offensive possessions for the Thunder that ended with "I summon Lou Dort in attack mode," and there you go. At the very least, you are limiting the amount of possessions that end that way with the additions of Caruso and Hartenstein.
House, are we sure that OKC isn't about to just throw Lou Dort and 7 first-round picks for Lauri Markkanen to the Jazz?
They should.
Dude, their starting lineup of SGA. Their starting lineup would be SGA,
Caruso.
No, hold on.
Okay,
we're going jumbo ball here.
Oh.
SGA. We're sliding J-Dub from the 4 to the 2. Yeah, we're putting Lauri Markkanen at the 3, which, by the way, he's played at the 3. The people don't ever talk about that. He played at the 3 for the Cavs and at the 3 for the Jazz a fair amount the past few years, and their offense is always incredible whenever he plays at the 3. And then you put Chet at the 4, Isaiah Hartenstein at the 5, Caruso the first guy off the bench.
Cooking.
That's a fucking super team.
Yeah, Joe and Wiggins are your guys. Your
7 and 8,
and honestly, like big Jalen Williams is not bad. Like, he's like a totally
10th man. Yeah, serviceable rotation big that you just
got.
Throw
Case
out
on Wallace. We haven't even mentioned Case.
We haven't mentioned Case
on Wallace. Yeah.
Well, maybe he's included in the Lauri trade.
That's insane. Honestly, Presti is just to say if they don't win a championship out of this, it will be
It will be amazing. I mean, the only reason that I do think that I think that the only thing that they took from the last time was let's lock in the core very early and have all the pieces revolve around that. And then if things don't work out, we have these picks to pivot out. We always have picks to pivot out. Like if we just stack up on these picks, whether it's we're drafting guys replacements to keep it so that you don't have to spend a ton, or if something doesn't work out, like the Hartenstein move, maybe it's a bad fit. You can always just dump him with 3 firsts and go get someone else. So I don't know. I don't think that they would pay Lauri after paying Hartenstein, because then they'd have to pay Caruso, Lauri. Like I just think you're getting way too
just don't pay Caruso.
too much.
Just don't pay Caruso.
Maybe that's,
got Caruso.
that's
if Wallace is really good, and Topic.
Like who cares? You got rid of Giddey for Caruso.
They didn't even give up any picks for Caruso. It could be a 1-year rental, and it's totally fine.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Goodbye.
That deal is so insane.
They didn't even have to give up picks. So yeah, I mean, look, the Thunder ace the offseason. Presti is really good at what he does. And we'll see what they look like next year. I hope that I hope that they don't stop being aggressive if they think that they need another guy, though. Like this is enough for me for now. Like I think they don't have to make a move. But like if you're at the deadline and you're like, man, if we just got one, you basically be like a super version of what the Knicks have been doing, but doing like the no shitters thing where you're just playing.
They could pay 2 first-rounders just to have Jeremy Grant play like 15 minutes off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I got fucking destroyed for trading the 13th pick of the draft for Jeremy Grant because he can't rebound by Thunder fans afterwards. But I was like, I was drunk on slop during the mock draft. But they could just do that for fun if they wanted.
Again, the big thing is, no matter what move they make, as long as they're not making a turn all their picks into a KD for some reason, and it doesn't look like they're going to do something like that, they will be able to pay to get off whatever moves they make.
I'll say this much. I've heard KD wants to go back there. I don't know if they want him back.
I would want to go back there too.
I think they might be past that. I think they might just be like, you're like 38 now. Go away. like KD is one of the greatest players of all time. And if they had added him this offseason, I would have loved it. Don't get me wrong. But I think that they're just like, we want to do something different. We want to do something new. And like, we have enough talent.
Also, there's no way Ishbia is letting go of KD for anything but
right
like
now.
Overpay.
Yeah, right. No, he's having a normal one on Twitter about that.
I will also
it's say, lies. People are lying. Yeah, let's trust the mortgage guy.
I feel like it was under-discussed how good Shea was in the playoffs. Like, people were talking about, like, Ant Edwards. Like, I know Shea is a lot older than Ant Edwards, but, like, that was his first time being the guy in the playoffs, and he was so good.
Yeah. Which people did have concerns about that because we had never seen him like when the entire team is dependent on stopping him. And look, I think Dallas's defense was a little fugazi. Like I don't think they're quite as good as like the numbers showed, but I do think that going up against multiple playoff defenses and kind of balling out the way that he did proves that he is that guy and he's worthy of building around for sure.
We also should mention, like, I don't think we've talked Klay on the Mavs, have we? Like,
no.
What that fit would look like. I don't know.
I don't
know about that one.
I don't like it, to be honest. But I also, here's the thing. I've said this before, Rob. I used to say this about the Clippers, is that I thought that they were the usage of a substance front office where they just kind of made trades that made no sense, and they were just kind of very just erratic in their behavior. Where I was just like, wait, why are you trading that player for that? Like, there was a lot of redundancy. They just always felt like at every transaction cycle, they felt like they needed to make a move. That's kind of how I feel about the Mavs. But here's the thing. They basically just they traded Tim Hardaway Jr. They got off like that was good business just to get Quentin Grimes, take a flyer on him. Yeah. I like that more. Honestly, if someone brought this up to me, but if I were Denver, why would you not have just tried to trade for Quentin Grimes? Like, look, Quentin Grimes might suck, but like he's probably if he gets back to where he was like 2 years ago, he's probably like 70% of KCP if he's solid, and you're not paying him all that much money, and like he's going to be in a much better context working off Jokic. Like, I don't know, taking a year, like that would be like a creative thing to do, like them trading Hardaway for him and then turning around and making it so that Josh Green was more expendable, and then sending Josh Green out to get Klay Thompson, and then taking Derek Jones Jr. spot and replacing him with Najee Marshall. Like, they're basically just like different versions of the same players, but like Clay's better than Tim Hardaway Jr. still. Like, that will be an upgrade. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. in the playoffs is just completely unplayable. Whereas like Klay will have 1 or 2 games in a series, even if I don't love the fit defensively. Like I think that it compromises a lot of what they want to do on defense. On offense, if that is the fit, like he's going to be running off screens. He's going to be open some things up for Luka and Kyrie offensively. And that's an upgrade for sure over the Tim Hardaway Jr. spot. To me, Quentin Grimes is just a different version of Josh Green. And I think he's a potentially a better shooting version, which I think that they need spacers. And then the Derek Jones Jr. to Najee Marshall thing, I think Najee Marshall, the only thing, and I think Zach Lowe pointed this out, it does take away the vertical threat. And part of the reason why I like Derek Jones Jr. with Harden is because I like any player that can play with Luka to play with Harden and vice versa. But like, I think Najee Marshall might just be better than Derek Jones Jr. Like, I think there's a chance that he could come. They're kind of different versions of the same player, but I think that there's at least a chance that like he could be a little bit more of a volume shooter. I think that there's a chance that he could come in and he's still fairly young. He's like 25, 26. Like, I don't know. And he hasn't played with a guy like Luka before. Like I'm fine with their offseason. I just think that like they're addicted to the slop is what I'm trying to get at. Like, they love to shuffle guys in and out.
My belief about how good this will be for the Mavs in terms of the Klay fit is dependent on how spiteful Klay is. If Klay is so spiteful to the Warriors,
apparently wanted to stay in the West, so that tells you how much
and he took less than he would have gotten from the Warriors. But if he's so spiteful that he even buys it into the role player role, if he goes full Ray Allen to the Heat mode, this is a great move.
That's the thing, is that if he buys into the things that he refused to do with the Warriors,
exactly,
I would be pissed if I were a Warriors fan.
Right, but that's the thing. If he's
why would you be pissed though? You paid Jordan fucking Poole. Like, I'm sorry, that's your fault. That's your front office.
What does this have to do with Klay Thompson? They offered.
What are you talking about? That's the patient zero for everything that happened to the Warriors.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, I agree, but I also think that like the thing with Klay was like even this year after Jordan Poole was gone was like he just never was going to get to the point where he was not like the guy, not one of the top guys there, and like he is scalable. That's the thing that drives you so insane about him sometimes.
But here's the thing: is the difference is that like you paid Jordan Poole $30 million who didn't win 3 championships for you. Like even if Jordan Poole is gone after that fact, you're Klay Thompson. You're a legend. You're one of the most iconic Warriors of all time. Draymond gets paid and can't stop getting suspended and punching people in the face. You are injured all the time. Like
the vibes are probably unsalvageable, but I would just be annoyed that like the last 2 years it would have been really nice for him to buy into a different role.
Sure, take care of him, and maybe he does buy into that role.
No, he doesn't.
Well, they tried to. They tried to pay him $20 million. He was on a max contract 2 years ago.
I think it's honestly, I think it's kind of similar to the PG thing to loop it all back around, where it's like sometimes I feel like you just got to part ways.
Yeah,
it's just like I think Klay will be better off. I think the Warriors will be better off. I do think their fans getting upset at him is so crazy, though.
I think it is better for us in the rest of the NBA community as well, because now we will not have to hear about how Klay.
We don't have to pretend. Yeah,
we don't have to pretend. Right, Warriors fans will stop being like, "Oh, Klay's as good as Pippen was." Like, well, we can stop this.
Here's my thing though. These guys we're talking about did not win 3 titles with a team as the 3rd best player, like, and at some points the 2nd, like
if you count a Doc Rivers championship as multiple as you should, Ray Allen won 3 championships for the Celtics in Doc Rivers years.
That's true. It's a good point.
Yeah,
that's the equivalent.
I'm just saying it is fucking insane that they paid Jordan Poole $30 million. Like, and that is the patient zero for all of this stuff.
I would say patient zero is James Wiseman.
I mean, that's really bad.
That
too.
Really was that was the original, because at least Jordan Poole was good at one point.
Yeah, James.
He had that crazy shooting season.
But I don't know if is Wiseman like that.
Yes,
like damaging. It's not as damaging as Jordan Poole. I don't think.
Bill's no, totally disagree. Bill called this the night of the 2020 draft. He said if they fuck this pick up, they might be able to win 1 title in the next 2 years, but it's over after that. He was like, they need to nail this pick if you want to extend the window for the next 5 years, was his point. He was like, and his whole thing was, this is why they should draft Halliburton. Halliburton can come in and he can play with them right away and he fits well. And then over time, he can potentially become, more of a high ceiling guy. And he totally was right. And the missing on the Wiseman pick was the end of extending the window. It wasn't the end of the window because they still had all of those guys, but it was the end of making this thing go for five more years instead of 2 more years.
And then didn't trade him when they could have gotten stuff for him.
Yeah, they didn't trade him when he was at his peak value. And then
so
also,
let's say the Warriors,
before you continue, he compared it to Kawhi to the Spurs and he compared it to James Worthy to the Lakers. And he was totally right.
Okay. So let's say the Warriors draft Patrick Williams or Isaac Okoro or Onyeka Okongwu in the second spot.
Well, he was saying they should draft Halliburton.
Okay. If
that was completely right. He crushed the prediction.
I'm not saying Bill's wrong. I'm just saying, this is why
you're saying it's not a Wiseman
expecting a second round. You're expecting the second overall pick in the draft to be this home run pick, and
LaMelo Ball
was on the clock.
He was the only other one that would have realistically taken there.
And that's just my point. You know what I'm saying? Like when we're saying that the Wiseman pick was so damaging, it's not that damaging to have a draft pick not work out. What's way more damaging,
top of the draft, that's kind of damaging.
It's like a little damaging, but giving $30 million to a guy who immediately is not a rotation player.
They got off the money easily, though.
They got off the money easily, but look at what it did to the rest of their team. It made Draymond insane. It made Klay mad.
That's fair.
We're doing it a little bit calculator ratty, but that really did fuck them up beyond all compare, because they got too excited about the 2 timelines thing. The 2 timelines thing was falling apart. One of their young guys finally, it looked like, popped. And they were like, fuck, yes.
Okay, so
we'll give him money
my
and
hot
it'll be
take.
fine.
Yeah. No, hold on. Dredd, someone said this in the Discord earlier. The 2 timeline things work. They just didn't say that the second timeline was total dog shit. Second timeline. Someone said the second timeline was the episode of Community where Donald Glover walks in and the pizza and everything's on fire. That was the second timeline. Anyway,
I actually think the defining moment that, dude, if we really want to do this Warriors thing, was getting the second pick. It's not who they drafted.
Yeah, it's trading it.
Yeah, it is not immediately turning around and just
trying to get an impact player because you have Steph Curry.
That's fair.
That was the beginning. That was the beginning of the 2 timeline thing. Well, here's the thing. The Bill's argument on that was you're not going to take Halliburton at 2, but there are teams that would trade up to 2. You could take Halliburton at 5. You can take Halliburton at 6. And his whole thing was trade back, get some assets. The trade that he wanted them to do was the one that KOC reported that might have been bullshit, but it was Wendell Carter Jr. and the 4th pick for the 2nd pick. But then they turned around and they traded Wendell Carter Jr. a few months later. So if that were possible like that, to trade back and then get Halliburton, we could discuss this forever. But long story short here, the Warriors are done. And this Lauri marketed thing is just the latest thing of carrot on the stick. You're not getting Lauri marketing. They're done spending money. They're done. Yeah.
Your front office is sending. So this was the whole thing. On the timeline yesterday. Again, I am sympathetic with the idea that that maybe the Clippers should have taken some of those things. I don't think they should. I'm pretty sure none of those trades were worth going to be a second apron team. I get the second apron is Fugazi and everything else, but the bigger thing is the Warriors front office is heavily utilizing Golden State sponsored media right now. Tim is out there putting up
he's in the streets
propaganda numbers.
Elite.
Yeah. We're talking about NKVD, Pravda level stuff, man. This is legendary.
I mean, Barry Jackson should be scared right now for the Heat propaganda guy who posted earlier that even though they made literally 0 moves while the Knicks, Sixers, Celtics, all these teams continue to get better, that they're still going to be good and contend. I mean, they are the Heat. Maybe they'll just fucking do something and just pull a fucking rabbit out of the hat. But it is just funny that we're now at the point with these teams that are like, it's actually good not to make any moves when everyone else is trying to be aggressive and spend and use draft picks to improve their current roster and all that shit.
Tim is going band for band with Barry, and it's just he's blowing him out of the water.
Yeah. Also, the Suns, like the Suns really scared a lot of teams, I think.
Yeah.
I think the Suns going all in on KD and Beal scared the fuck out of teams.
Yeah, the Suns are such a disaster case for not only are you a second apron team and all the limitations that comes with, not only are you paying for extreme mediocrity, you are also no longer even able, because here's the thing, like Celtics, Wick's selling the team, so maybe all that, they're paying like massive tax bills. The Celtics can blow it up whenever they want. Like the Celtics can get off those contracts.
They have a new owner, so.
Well, they will. Maybe Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia is running that bill up. I'm telling you, Mohammed bin Salman is not afraid to spend.
I got to tell you right now, I am an apostate. I would be driven and fed to dogs, but I would rather have MBS than John Henry Fenway Sports Groups. I'm just saying.
I said the same thing.
Similar amount of bodies
about Portnoy being involved in the ownership group in any way, shape, or form, like as a figurehead. No, the house
Portnoy and Bill getting together and making the Ringer Barstool Collective buying in on the Celtics.
The wonderful House of Maktoum. Of the United Arab Emirates will come over. They will give my beautiful Derek White all his money. Can I cook on the Celtics a little bit, because this is awesome. This is such a cool thing.
By the way, you called this like a while ago. You were like, they're not paying this. I don't know.
Yeah,
that motherfucker is not paying this tax bill.
They're not paying this fucking tax. This is cool. Okay, I want to be clear. I'm not slandering the ownership for this, because the Celtics won a title. We got what we wanted as fans. I think it's awesome to try to scam another owner into being the one who either pays the bill or gets everyone mad at you for being the one who like green lights trading Jaylen Brown or something like that.
Sure.
And that is Wick's masterstroke here. He's doing the fucking Kevin Spacey. Yeah, like this is the usual suspects walk away here at the end.
Yeah. He's Jack Dorsey right now. Dorsey, and he's just hanging out with like Taylor Rooks right now. And I'm like, what the how the fuck did he pull this off?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just get to like you get to be like the good bad guy and like walk away. Yeah. Like that's what's gonna happen in this ownership handoff. It's either gonna be like Hamdan bin Mohammed Al Maktoum, also known as Faza.
How about the Bain Capital Celtics?
Yeah, or
Mitt Romney going back to his old ways.
The Mormon connection.
There you go.
Wow. I was going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say. The key to getting Wemby is just having a Mormon connected to you.
Having a deeply evil ownership group, but one that would like still pay the thing is funny. That's why John Henry really is the worst, because he's not only an awful piece of shit, but also would absolutely trade Jaylen Brown like year one and be like, no. We need
Jason Tatum year one. He traded Mookie Betts.
Yeah, Liverpool needs a new 14-year-old. Let me get rid of this thing. So let's go.
I didn't realize that Bain Capital was already a thing.
We've got some bad shit in that ownership group.
Let's
you
go.
dig through. We've got some.
Well, luckily I'm a Sixers fan, so we only have a morally pure owner who would never, get into anything that is. Anyway, I want to keep my life, so let's continue.
I say Brian's got that idea.
Please, I would love the Xi Jinping Celtics.
LeBron James, you are going to Las Vegas, but what better way to cap off your career of owning the Celtics by literally owning the Celtics?
Let's go.
That would be amazing. Until he
I see.
Moved them down.
Actually, no, I love that idea. You should also have him be in the front office.
No! Wait!
LeBron, lay GM. Let's go.
Lay GM. No.
Look, I think that again.
Yeah, no, hold on. Bert said this. LeBron would be exactly like MJ as an owner. He would 100%. He honestly, it would have worked out this time because Edey is the best player from this last draft. But if LeBron had the first pick as the Atlanta Hawks this year, he would have taken Zach Edey because he loved him in the tournament. Anyway, continue. That would have been the right pick, by the way.
What I will say to the point about team building is the Celtics are going to be in the second apron. They're going to have all of the issues. They're going to be like locked and like I don't anticipate them. I think that they will be a second apron team this year and then maybe next year. And then after that, they won't be. I don't think they'll let more than one pick demote. But actually, they didn't even freeze the pick last year.
But why does it matter if the pick demotes for the Celtics? Wouldn't it suck if the Celtics picked 30th?
It's not demoting this year. It's demoting 7 years out.
That's how
freezing and demoting.
Yeah, freezes demotes 7 years out.
Yeah. And means you can't trade them during the observation window.
But doesn't that release when the second you get out of the second apron?
No, it releases after 4 years. The pick gets placed in suspended animation.
Be in the second apron for 3 years.
Right. And if you are then within the second apron again, any 2 of the next 4 years, the pick is demoted to 30.
Yeah, they fucked up.
I still say fuck it.
I would say that. If you're in the Celtics position, I think if you have any team that can win the championship, I'm fine with.
What I'm saying is that I think that
you're going to suck forever, but that's
unlike the Suns. The Celtics can be a second apron team, and then whenever they want to, they can get off profitably for a lot of these contracts. Not that I want them to do that. I'd like them to keep paying. Fuck. I would also like them to say fuck it. But like,
you're not the Suns doing it. Like the Suns doing it is fucking insane because we all know that they're almost certainly not going to win the NBA Finals or even get to the finals.
That's why like the Nuggets doing it is so stupid. Like that's why like whenever
not doing it.
Exactly.
And that's why like the Clippers conversation. I forget who put this, but like I think it was a Clippers person who's like everybody always says the Clippers are not a title team and like they're too old and they're too injury prone. And like if that's the case, then like you also shouldn't shit on them for not re-signing Paul George. Like, if you don't think they're good enough, then, like, it makes sense to not be in the second apron as well. It only makes sense for...
They're just never going to... This was the year that if they could have been healthy, they would have been...
Exactly.
Like, and, like, honestly, like, Kawhi is one of the best basketball players of all time, and he's still, like, he had moments this year, but, like, there were also moments, like, I remember the Sixers game that they played this year where I was like, he doesn't look like Kawhi. And in the playoffs, he certainly didn't look like Kawhi. And I think that if he can get healthy, sure, but, like, what are the odds of him ever being healthy for an extended period of time?
Right. Which is why, like, the Nuggets thing is just, like, such a different... People are like, well, you can't...
He never gets hurt.
Yeah, Jokic is, like, 5 years younger and never, ever, ever gets hurt, which is, like, one of the underrated things about him. But, like, it's the same thing with the Celtics. Like, the Celtics can win a title, like, the next couple of years, probably. At least
pushing the chips.
Yeah, like just pushing the like. Who cares if your 2032 pick gets frozen? The Clippers have like one pick left. If their pick gets sent to 30th, like that's bad. The Celtics have a ton of draft picks left, and they have like other assets. Like it's such a different situation.
And also, we know that the Clippers aren't cheap. Like I mean, they could spend if they wanted to. They're the reason why this exists. What we don't get about the new CBA is like, why are the broke owners whining about this? Because they were the ones that benefited from those super tax teams. Like if anyone doesn't understand, the Warriors and the Clippers, when they spent into the tax, the teams that weren't in the tax got that money. Like they got a big chunk of the tax payments.
I think it's what we were saying on the draft stream last night, because the money is like besides the point. It's the psychic damage of being seen as a shitty bitch loser. Like and that's what the owners want to win, you know, like they're competitive. Like they ideally want to win without like being cheap, because this is how rich guys think. I know how I hung out with rich guys. This is how rich guys think. The greatest compliment you can give a rich guy is that he's smart. So winning is very important because that proves that you're smart. If you can win cheaply, that's like double victory. That is like fucking God mode. So like being able to win, like, because that's in finance, that's how they win, is by doing things cheap. So like winning cheap is like the ultimate. That's why Moneyball is like, all rich guys love Michael Lewis Moneyball. Like that's like the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Right.
Is, winning cheap.
Yeah, I can't imagine having a GM who would like worship Michael Lewis or, you know, Moneyball or anything like that. Anyway, if you happen to read the piece written by Michael Lewis on Daryl Morey sometime, let me know. Yes. About how he's a genius for trading the 7th pick in the draft for Shane Battier, and has ignored role players ever since for some reason. He's just completely over the idea of acquiring good role players. But so Yeah. Basically what you're trying to get at is that being a billionaire is just insidious, as someone said in the comments. But last thing before we get out of here, because there's no more slop coming through. We will be back. If there is any major slop, I'll hop on stream. If there are any trades or any big free agency news that happens this week, sign up for the Patreon if you have not already. If you want to hear, we've done like over 20 hours of content since the draft. So if you want access to the reactions to every big trade, it's every day there's a new piece of slop that's dropped on the Patreon. That's like 2 or 3 hours. So sign up for the Patreon. This is the best time to do it. Yeah. And yeah, we'll do an emergency stream when the Sixers sign Precious Achiuwa in a few days. You don't want to miss out on that one. But it's been great. But last thing, I do just want to shit a little bit. Oh, let's go. $5 donation for Jorb. Let's get it.
Let's go.
Jorbing it up. Last thing before we get out of here, I do just want to shit a little bit on the Warriors one more time.
Let's go.
How come they're not the Zach LaVine team? You could have got a first-round pick to get Zach LaVine and have him replace Klay. Apparently the Bulls said they would send Zach LaVine for Chris Paul and Andrew Wiggins, and they said no. Not even Kuminga, who I'm not high on Kuminga, but that's
it was Zach LaVine and a first-round pick.
It was Zach LaVine and a first-round pick for Chris Paul and Wiggins.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, you can Warriors fans. You cannot seriously buy that your team cares about winning at this point.
I do just want to point out that someone commented this earlier, but the Chasing Wins playback, which is like the Warrior Spaces fans group, they're all like, I've joked about like Twitter Spaces being like the closest thing we have to like the Cuban guerrilla radio during the revolution. And
it's more like the Jonestown recording.
A little bit. It's
yeah.
become like that for Warriors fans. Like it was originally like the Lakers and the Warriors, like, we will not take this. And now it's just got to the point where it's just fully deranged. They have 500 people in there right now. It's over for them. And they have 500 people in there right now. Someone pointed out. It's just it's incredible. But I mean, like I said, like there's so many moves they could have made. They're not getting Lauri marketed, but like they could have just got Zach LaVine for free or even gotten a pick. And they're just choosing no. It's done.
It's a fuck up of epic proportion. Look, Bob Myers, I'm dying on this hill. Bob Myers is so at fault for this shit and is never gonna see a lick of blame for any of this. This is almost entirely, this whole collapse can be placed squarely at his feet. The Warriors were so fucked by his shitty management, like from the get-go. He was gifted Steph Curry. He did a good job because I think he drafted Klay Thompson and Draymond. I'm correct?
He did.
Yes.
He only drafted Draymond. He got hired before the 2012 draft.
Okay, so he inherited Klay and Steph, got Draymond. Draymond, by the way, great pick. That's a franchise-defining pick.
Harrison Barnes and Draymond was a good draft.
Harrison Barnes is fine. You know that you didn't fuck up your 7th pick.
Whoa, hold on, he got a 4 starter with the 7th pick of the draft. Is that not literally like your entire draft philosophy?
That's what I'm saying. It's fine. It's good.
That was the
you know what I'm saying? To the point, it's not fucking up. You know, like that's what I'm saying. You didn't fuck up. Good job. They and then the Iguodala trade was good. Like that's a good trade.
Free agency, that was
free agency.
Yeah.
Everything after that is like the cap jump and Kevin Durant being cool with coming. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, that has nothing to fucking do with Bob Myers. That has absolutely nothing to do with Bob Myers. And everything after that has been essentially an unmitigated disaster since that time. Everything was fucked up. Everything was bad.
Trade was pretty good. Honestly, the Nets bailed them out by letting them get D'Lo in that sign and trade. They directly led to that them getting Wiggins and Kuminga.
The Nets, everything the Nets touches turns to gold, except for the Nets.
Well, the Nets, honestly, that's like a fine trade because D'Lo did suck. Like that, it's the Wolves are the part.
But they would have had no way to replace the salary slot. Was the whole thing.
That's true. But that's
they would
what
have
lost
KD and they would have been over the cap and they would have been like, oh, we have no way to acquire Wiggins.
The Warriors sent something though. You know what I'm saying? That's how that works.
A fake first. It was like a top 25 protected first that never conveyed.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
It was worth a shot. My point here is like that the Wiggins thing is like totally fine. Everything else is just like insane luck. I have to keep stressing this. And Otto Porter never played like 7 games in the NBA after that
2022 NBA Finals, baby.
Jordan Poole got paid and went off a cliff. Bielitsa retired. Like he is the biggest fucking fraud of all time in terms of like GMs. And the Warriors fans have to look at him. He fucking knew it too. He knew what was fucking coming, and he threw you to the Wolves and didn't own it like a giant fucking loser. That every time that smug asshole is on the TV, you should be booing him. Boo his ass. He got off there and fucking he ruined you. I hate him because he's such a fucking coward. Own the fact that you fucked up. You got to prance and dance about how fucking smart you were for 10 years. Own your fucking failures, you loser. Running away to ESPN.
This is the equivalent of Michael Jordan talking about Jerry Krause in the Last Dance, and then they're going to boo Bob Myers' widow in 20 years when he's back at the Warriors.
I'll be there.
Sam is this close to
garbage at her. Apple cores from the second
Sam
deck.
is this close to remaking Holiday in Cambodia, or no? What is the the Dead Kennedys song? But instead,
I thought you were going to say "They Not Like Us." You lied.
Okay, well, I was going to go for a California specific one. He's going to remake the Governor Jerry Brown, except it's going to be about Governor of Warriors Bob Myers.
Perfect. All right. Well,
Will's making fun of me for owning my failures. One last thing before we get out of here. I was extremely wrong on this podcast. I said in 2022 that the Utah Jazz would return to relevancy before the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oh my God. I forgot about that one.
That's maybe the most wrong anyone's ever been.
Every one of Sam's takes is just based in what he wants to happen. It's just like there's like a sliver of like, I really want this to happen.
You gotta cook sometimes. Okay, look. Part of being a prophet, I've been called a witch on here because I get things right every once in a while. Part of that is being wrong. Yeah. That is the most wrong anyone has ever been on this podcast ever.
It's pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. Sam Presti, he was rewarded for his cowardice. I have to admit defeat. I give up the ghost. Folks,
they say it on Twitter. Thunder Twitter has been saying this recently.
Yep.
Championships are won on spreadsheets, folks.
Yes, that's true.
I love that line.
Oh, I will officially, now that I might pick the Thunder to win the West, I almost certainly will pick the Thunder to win the West this year. I do feel I have to bring back up the fact that I said the Jazz would be better than them faster 2 years ago.
It's incredible. We love it. Oh my God. Yeah, the calculator rats up one, but we will have our day in the sun. Paul George is a Philadelphia 76er. Maxey, that is the best trio of, I know they're also beloved by calculator rats, but Maxey, Embiid, Paul George have a collective hooper within them, and we will rise once again.
The real hooper Patriots will be in charge.
For January 76ers.
Let's go.
Hopefully I'm not Ashley Babbitt.
When Kylie joined the Celtics because she hated like Luka for the playoff run, she called them the J-Sixers. She just started saying, J-Sixers, where we at? It was fucking killing me. I was like, I don't think you're really a Celtics fan. I'm getting some mixed vibes here.
All right. Sign up for the Patreon. We'll be back on Playback later this week if anything happens. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.